Welcome to the first episode of the Serve with Love video series, produced by the Indigo Road Hospitality Group. I'm your host, CJ Arlotta. Today I'm speaking with Larry Spelts, President of Indigo Road's Lodging and Lifestyle Adventures Division. Larry, good to be speaking with you today.
Thank you, CJ. It's my pleasure.
So for people who aren't familiar with you, mind sharing a little bit about yourself, your background, and what you're up to now?
Yeah, sure. I guess the easiest, simplest way to sort of summarize, me and my experience in hospitality is like I'm sure, like a lot of people, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I was in college. I needed a job while I was in college, so I started working in hospitality and discovered that I was good at it. And I chose the fine arts as an undergraduate major, which made me generally unemployable, except in hospitality. And so I was off on my way to a career in hospitality, and did pretty well at it. I was fortunate to begin my career in Charleston, South Carolina, in the late 80s, when it was really emerging as a significant destination, both domestically and internationally. And so there was a lot of development in the historic district of Charleston, of historic structures being converted into hotels and inns. And I was with a company that was doing that. And so after several years of learning the business, and I learned a lot from the owner of the company, who was a former IHG executive, and he developed several new small hotels. That was our specialty, were small hotels. We didn't actually have the term boutique hotel when we were doing that. They were inns or small hotels. And so I opened an 18-room, and then a couple of years later opened a 27-room, and then a year or so after that, I was hired by another group with a 41-key project and an 1841 structure that eventually became 64 keys, and a member of Relais Chateau and a great restaurant. The property was Planters Inn and Peninsula Grill, and I was there for 10 years. Learned a lot. It was owned by an investment banker, and I got interested in finance and things like that. And after 10 years there, went to New York, worked at the Carlisle Hotel with the Rosewood Hotel Group, and did some other things, and went to grad school. I decided after a fairly successful career as an operator of luxury hotels, that I wanted to see what I didn't know, because they'll say you don't know what you don't know. So I went to New York University and got an MBA from the Stern School of Business, and found out there was a lot I didn't know. So it was a good thing, and got some good training in finance and business strategy and organization design and all that stuff that has really enabled me to go to another level in the industry. And I went to Charlestowne Hotels and built that company with Michael Tall over a period of about 7 years. Where they have an amazing portfolio now of beautiful properties that Michael and I worked hard to put together over those years. And then I went out, departed Charlestown, and had an opportunity to do a huge project in Dallas, Texas over 2 years. And then just before the pandemic, came back to Charleston at the invitation of Steve Palmer, the founder of Indigo Road Hospitality Group. Asked me to start a lodging division for what had been historically a restaurant company. Although Steve and I had worked together in hotels earlier in our careers, Steve was the opening general manager for Peninsula Grill at Planters Inn, where I was for 10 years. And he went on to work with Ritz-Carlton and Ginn Resorts before founding Indigo Road in 2009. So we we had always wanted to work together again, and Steve always had wanted to get back into hotel food and beverage. He had a great successful run doing independent restaurants with Indigo Road, and when he invited me to come on board and start the lodging division, Indigo had 24 restaurants, had received numerous James Beard Award nominations, including Steve himself, 3 years in a row, semifinalist for the James Beard Award for Outstanding Restaurateur. And he kept getting asked to do restaurants and bars in hotels. Hotel owners were not happy with how their hotel management company was operating the food and beverage. So Indigo Road would get asked to come in and do that. And Steve recognized that really wasn't an ideal situation to have two different operating groups in the same house, if you will. And so it really prompted him to make that leap into lodging, because he had a couple of projects that had approached him, and he knew he didn't want to do them unless Indigo operated the hotel as well as the food and beverage. And so by bringing me on board, he was able to present that we had, in-house competency for doing that. And since my coming on board, we've built out a whole team of all the necessary disciplines to successfully operate hotels, particularly independent upper upscale hotels that have a lot of food and beverage. Sorry, that was long, but that's what happens when you've been in the business for 30 years.
Right.
You can't
Experience.
You can't explain your background in 1 minute.
Larry, you mentioned boutique hotels earlier. How would you define a boutique hotel?
This was such a popular discussion panel topic in the I would say the late 2000s. Like every conference I went to in 2009, 10, and 11, I think for 3 years in a row, there was always a panel. What is a boutique hotel?
Right.
And it's all over the place. I mean, at the end of the day, literally, it's whatever you want it to be. Yeah. But I think if I took a consumer's perspective and not an industry perspective, as a consumer, and I'm a consumer of boutique hotels, and my friends who I know who prefer boutique hotels, for us, it's a smaller property. There's no magic number, but probably less than 100 keys, and ideally maybe between 50 and 75. And it is thoughtfully designed and from a point of view of someone who is passionate about the property. So corporate boutique hotels tend to fall flat, I think, a lot of times. I know right now there's a major private equity firm who I've consulted with over the years on various projects, who is trying to build out a portfolio of boutique hotels. And they've got terrific resources to do it. I've visited 3 of them so far. And with one possible exception, they're all kind of like, feel very corporate.
Yeah.
I mean, it's different. It's tough. I mean, because you've got to have an owner who is really, or owners, sometimes it's partners, but you've got to have ownership that is passionate and really cares, and then not just cares because they're investing people's money in it like a private equity firm would, but they care because they're doing this as much out of passion for hospitality as they are for to make a buck. And so it's got to, so it comes through in the design, thoughtfulness about attention to details, surprises and delights, and a unique perspective. And I think that's really the thing that drives boutique hotels, is that each one that succeeds is offering a unique perspective that is driven by ownership And that comes through in the design, the physical plant, the touch points, the guest experience, the sort of the tone and spirit of the service style. And that's a boutique hotel. And I think the last comment would be that it's unique. Unique meaning not one of several that are of the same brand and are trying to be the same thing. I think probably a good example of a really terrific collection of hotels under one brand. It's one that I had the pleasure to be involved with at the genesis of it. And it's really grown and it's successful, but I wouldn't characterize them as boutique hotels anymore because I don't know how many they've got now. I think at least 12.5, maybe 24. They're all the same brand and they all kind of have the same look and feel. It's graduate hotels, great concept and fun hotels, but I can't really call them a boutique anymore. It's a chain, all one brand and all sort of one, point of view, if you will.
Larry, you mentioned earlier how important it is for ownership to be passionate about the properties in their portfolio. Why are you passionate about independent boutique hotels?
I'm sure it has a lot to do with the aspects of my personality that motivated me to be a fine arts major in college, which is, I'm creative and I love entertaining others with what I can do with my creativity, and that's the generous side of the arts, and that's the generous side, I think, of hospitality is that we learn to do something and hopefully we learn to do it well, and then we find a platform for sharing it with others, being able to do something well and only doing it for oneself and never having it being shared with others. It sort of it's hollow. It's kind of like, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there, does it make a sound, right? Well, if someone's there, it certainly does. And so, wanting to, express a vision and create an experience, and that is, sharing it validates it, just like the tree falling makes a sound if somebody's there to hear it, right? So, for me, it's a creative outlet. And that's the short answer that I probably should have given instead of rambling.
No, that answer works as well. I appreciate I appreciate the answer. I want to move a little bit into another topic, and I want to talk about why asking a hotel operator to manage a restaurant can potentially cost you millions. Sound good?
Yeah, and who knows how much it's going to cost you, but I think what you mean, and to your point, is I don't think you very often get the outcome that's desired when a typical, or sort of one of the many hotel management companies out there attempts to do the food and beverage. The outcome is most often not great. It just isn't. And I remember from my years at Charlestowne Hotels, for example, that we had a few properties that needed significant food and beverage programming, and we reached out to other groups who specialized in that, including Indigo Road. Indigo Road and Charlestowne Hotels, through my relationship with Steve Palmer at Indigo Road, did a couple of hotels together where Indigo did all the food and beverage and we did everything not food and beverage. And the reason for that is that the managing partner, the principal of Charlestowne Hotels, wanted nothing to do with food and beverage. Is like he owned a few hotels, had been managing other people's hotels for quite a few years, and we were growing this management company in the boutique and lifestyle space. And he just like, oh no, it's awful, it's too difficult, it doesn't make money. And what I have found that is pretty consistently the attitude of folks who came up in lodging, that if they did food and beverage, they did it because, well, we got to have it. And then they approach it with this sort of, they're, either, afraid of it or dreading it or feeling like it's an imposition because the flag that they've chosen for their hotel requires you have food and beverage, and they're like, oh, I guess we have no choice. And the only way that food and beverage is executed at a high level that makes it a great experience is through passion. And what I just described, there's zero passion, zero. Right. And that's really why, I would tell any hotel owner, be careful, choosing a hotel operator if you want to have great food and beverage in your property. If they're coming at it from a place of fear and dread and loathe, it's not going to be good.
Larry, in your experience, how often is the restaurant run by the hotel, and why is this?
Yeah, it very often is, and I think the reason is that it's probably that, and I can't speak for every asset owner, but they want to deal with one operator, and they want and I think probably the biggest driving reason for that is they want to make sure that there is a level of continuity and that there's an opportunity to realize potential opportunities and synergies in driving food and beverage revenues by making sure that there's no conflict of interest between two operators, right? Because that's the problem that Indigo Road was observing in the hotels where Indigo Road was managing the food and beverage outlets and someone else was managing the hotel, is the hotel operator, unfortunately, was like not particularly supportive or willing to cooperate on innovative ideas to optimize the food and beverage opportunities by creating maybe promotional offers or packaging with rooms, things like that. So having one operator for both becomes important for that reason.
Larry, you mentioned something interesting just there, and I want to dive a little bit more into it. You mentioned hotel operators and restaurant operators trying to work together. How can they work together to generate additional revenue for properties?
Well, but first thing I would say was avoid that. Find a hotel operator who is exceptional at food and beverage, right? Like Indigo Road, for example. Sure. And there are some others. There's a couple others out there who I have a lot of respect for, who do a great job with both hotel and food and beverage. But if for some reason one wants to hire a hotel operator and then hire a food and beverage operator for all the food and beverage, I think the key things that they need to work together on are making sure that hotel guests have a great food and beverage experience. Because I have seen where, and this happens a lot, I think, in leased food and beverage operations, which is another issue that, a hotel owner gets frustrated that their hotel operator can't do a good job with the restaurant. And so they just decide to lease the restaurant space to a restaurant company or brand.
Sure.
And I've seen what happens then is that the folks doing the food and beverage, the restaurant or the restaurant operator, don't really have a vested interest in the hotel guest having a great food and beverage experience, right? Because they're like, well, if the hotel guest doesn't want to eat in here, that's fine, because I've got locals coming in, or I got people from neighboring hotels coming in and things like that. And it's short-sighted, sure.
Yeah.
It absolutely is short-sighted. But what happens so often is that there's this sort of infighting that starts happening between the restaurant tenant or the restaurant operator and the hotel operator. And it's like, well, you got to do this. Well, no, you got to do that. Well, we need you to do this and we need you to do that. And they just don't get it together. I mean, look, I've even seen, instances where there is one operator for everything, and the beverage division is at odds with the rooms division. They're not cooperating. So it can even happen with one operator. We come at it leading with food and beverage. So we hire folks in our hotels, in say rooms division, for example, who are excited and passionate about food and beverage. And why not? I mean, everybody loves food and beverage, right? Everybody wants to have a great meal and have a good drink and have a good time eating out or going out for drinks. So, it's easy for us to find rooms executives who are really excited about great food and beverage. And so those are the folks that we bring on board to manage our hotels, and it works out great because everyone's on board and supportive about making the primary driving experience for the guest in our hotels a food and beverage experience. There's an old saying, and it's true for a reason, that the way to a person's heart is through their stomach. And it's certainly true of hotel guests.
You spoke about this a little bit earlier, but what are some of the biggest mistakes hotel operators make when managing a restaurant?
Yeah, so, well, the first and most common mistake they make is the old expression, playing not to lose rather than playing to win. And that's probably the most common problem with hotel operators, because historically in the industry, food and beverage was a loss leader for selling rooms rather than standing on its own feet. And so they come at it, they're playing not to lose. They say, okay, well, let's do this food and beverage, and gosh, if we can just not lose money, that's a win. Well, no, it's not.
Right.
And but the next thing though, that I think a lot of hotel operators, what causes them to miss on the food and beverage is not thinking of it as a restaurant on its own. It's like thinking of it as an amenity for the hotel. So what we do that is very different, I think, for a lot of traditional hotel companies and hotel operators is when we come into a project, whether it's an ongoing concern or a development project that's in design, the first thing we say is, The restaurant's got to have its own identity, unrelated to and unconnected to the hotel. The restaurant as its own unique brand identity, not as part of the hotel's brand identity. And we come at it in the concept of it, the branding of it, the interior design, everything to do with it, as if it were a restaurant on its own somewhere else, not in a hotel. And we figure out, what does the market want? What do the locals want? We believe that visitors to a destination want to eat where the locals eat. So we develop our restaurants that happen to be in hotels for the local market, not for the hotel guest. Because if we can make the local market happy and have locals coming into our restaurant, the guests will follow, and the guests will be very pleased as well. I've never seen an instance where a locally popular restaurant in a hotel disappointed hotel guests. The hotel guests love to be in a restaurant full of locals. And so, you know, and we've got some, in terms of the physical plant and the layout of the property, we've learned that there are some definite do's and don'ts to make sure that we succeed in making the restaurant feel like it is truly a restaurant on its own, independent of a hotel, even though it's in a hotel. And, you know, I would characterize those as trade secrets. We're happy to share them when we do the project. But you know, it's pretty consistent, and we apply them consistently, and we've consistently been successful. We've never had, and when I'm say we, I mean Steve Palmer and me personally, wherever we've worked, and then together at Indigo Road, and even at Indigo Road before I came on board, because they had done several hotel restaurants and bar concepts. But we've never had a hotel food and beverage concept not be successful and profitable on its own by following the principle that I just outlined and doing those things that we've learned when it comes to how the facility is laid out, how it's designed, how the branding is done, all of that. And so so we're convinced.
Yeah, sure.
And anyway,
when an owner or a developer has a project and is looking, and the project has a restaurant and is looking for a hotel operator and a restaurant operator, how should the ownership company or the developer vet the hotel operator or the restaurant operator? What types of questions should they be asking?
Well, the first thing they should do is they should go and stay in one or two of their hotels and eat in the restaurants in those hotels, right? The proof is in the pudding, and and then, you know, in terms of vetting, otherwise, you know, if the hotel operator is operating, you know, third party assets, not their own, I'd ask to speak to those owners that they're working for, and just say, hey, how are they doing? What do you like about these guys? And but really, I think that's the biggest thing, is to talk to the other owners for whom the hotel operator is managing, and go eat in the restaurants.
And one last question, Larry, where is Indigo Road heading?
Yeah, so we are headed to so today we're speaking, it's September 2021. I think by the end of 2023, because we've got several development projects ongoing, and we are talking to several ongoing concerns about assuming management of their ongoing operations. So I feel that by 2023, based on what we've got in our pipeline, that we'll have probably 6 to 8 open and operating hotels, and all of them with substantial food and beverage.
Great.
And I think once we get there, late 2023, and we have a half dozen or more, and assuming we continue to have the success that we're experiencing with our first opening at Skyline Lodge in Highlands, North Carolina, where we have our Oak Steakhouse, that we will, we'll really, I think we'll see rapid growth after that. That was my experience at Charlestown, that once we got a certain number under our belt and they were doing well and well received by the consumer, that we got approached by a lot of folks that wanted us to come and do their hotel. And I think the same will happen for Indigo Road.
Great. Larry, thanks for speaking to me today.
Yeah, thank you. I enjoyed it. Sorry I'm a little long-winded, but this stuff's exciting, so I love talking about it.
You were perfectly fine. I'm looking forward to having you back on.
Oh, you're gonna say you're looking forward to editing me.
No, that's not it.
All right. Thank you, CJ.
All right. Sounds good, Larry. Talk to you soon.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.